let's go back to Craven Cottage, my friend. So Manchester United, after a decent performance but a loss against Arsenal, rolled up to Craven Cottage down in London. I think we'd expect Manchester United, based on progression, Rob, to win this game. It might be tight. Fulham, we know, under Marco Silva, play good football, never give up. Subs can come on and make things happen as they do again. But this has to go down as a disappointing result, doesn't it, for Ruben Amorim? And after the sort of, feel-good factor we got last week when we were at Old Trafford, and remember, the fans applauding the players off the pitch for what they saw.
Yeah, it is disappointing. I think, to be fair, I always felt like the front line's is better. It's obviously better. They spent a lot of money there in all three spots in that front line, if you like. But there's still weaknesses from last season with the system that he wants to play. And I thought that showed itself again. I thought they played really well, Rob, in the first 15, 20 minutes. They get into around half an hour mark. They score the first goal. It was kind of an own goal. It was well attacked by Lenny Yoro, but it was off the back of a defending player to make it 1-0. And even the manager said himself afterwards, Rob, after that, they went into a little bit of defensive mode.
Mode,
Ruben Amorim said, we started thinking about the result.
The score,
And then you start to protect, you start to drop off. And that invites Fulham to come on and force the play. Manchester United, Rob, at Craven Cottage against Fulham are hanging on at the end. They're hanging on at the end. And as much as I like Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, they are proven at this level. They've scored tons of goals. There's still glaring problems. Goalkeeper is a problem. But the biggest problem is the middle of midfield, I think, now, Rob. And Bruno Fernandes missed his penalty, was badly shaken when he bumped into the referee. He has to reset himself. And sticks it over the top, and then he loses his marker, Emil Smith-Rowe, who scores the equalising goal for Fulham a little later on. So we all want to speak highly of United. We all want to feel like we need to see steps in the right direction. And there were signs of it early on, and then it went back to being scared, error-ridden, and just disappointing play. And this cannot. It cannot continue. And I don't want to react too much to this. They didn't lose the game. But this, Rob, there's got to be signs in the next few weeks, and I'd say the next 2 months, that we got to start seeing United putting more positive performance, dominating performances and good victories on the record, or he's going to be really under pressure for his job.
So I totally agree with all that you said. I want to come back to not question a couple of the points you make, but to get validity on a couple of things that you said. Just starting off with recruitment, Rob. They spent around $300 million on three forward players: Chesko, Cunha, and Mbeumo.
Yeah.
Who will get goals? Who will get the goals? I mean, they scored 44 goals in all of last season. I think those three amongst them were somewhere around 50 goals. So there'll be goals will come from them three. Chesko's still got to, Benjamin Chesko's a young lad, still got to get used to it. But most teams, Rob, most teams I've worked with, most coaches I've worked with, generally build from the back forward. So they get the back line and the goalkeeper. All right, with Sam, David Moyes is a great example of that. When he went in Everton. Then you get a midfield that's robust, that's strong, that might not be as technically, might not have the great playmakers, but we're going to protect.
You're building a foundation, Rob.
Yeah, and then we have the forward. Manchester United almost doing it in reverse. The front line, with the right things behind it, I think can be top six. Can be top six. But the stuff behind it, Rob, and you've got a couple of massive glaring issues. You've got holding midfield role, of which you've got two positions.
Yeah.
You haven't got one player who's naturally suited to that role. Now, I don't know if you got. Listen, I don't know, and I'm being hypothetical here. If you found a Patrick Vieira-esque and sat him next to Bruno, I don't know that possibly could work, because he would get around and he'd do all that work, and Bruno would probably take a little bit from him and then go forward. But based on you haven't got any one of them, Bruno's not a number 6.
No.
So then you've now got three centre-backs sometimes who get a little bit exposed, the wing-backs who do what they do at the moment. Not enough possession, not enough control to get in the game, like we see Crystal Palace. And then you've got a glaring problem, Rob, with your goalkeeper. That I said last week, until you end your goalkeeper problem, you get the two you go and get two central midfield players who do you the job, and I'm going to name you two in a minute. If you've got a goalkeeper that you don't rely on, at big moments in big games, that goalkeeper's going to let you down. Liverpool had it with Simon Mignolet.
Yeah.
He was a good keeper. It was a good level. Every now and then there'd be a game and he'd miss a punch or he wouldn't make a save. And Liverpool went, sorry, Simon, you've been a great... Alisson, we've never talked about a goalkeeper problem since in the last 5-6 years at Liverpool.
Let me go back a little bit, Rob, to the first part of that comment.
Rant. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I would say they did try. They have tried to start at the back. They signed Andre Onana not long ago. That's an attempt to get an experienced class
that's recruitment then, isn't it?
Okay, so let's hold that.
Okay.
Centre-backs, Matthijs de Ligt, Lenny Yoro, Mazraoui. They have recruited defenders, and they still got Maguire. Of all the problems they've got, I feel like those centre-backs are kind of like Yoro. De Ligt, I think, started pretty well. And Luke Shaw's a good left-sided three. You've got Mazraoui to come back. I think, okay, they've had a go at that, Rob. I'm not saying it's a super strong foundation, but they've had a bit of a go at that. And then they've jumped. Then I totally agree. They've jumped forward, into the front players. And they bought so many of them. Did they need that many, Rob? What about Xerxes? What about, Hoyland's been there a little while, but Josh Xerxes is a kind of a recent sign. Ugate's another one. They're signing, and then they're like, actually, no. We need another one. We need another one. We need another one. Ugarte, you go back to the central midfield. He was from PSG. He was going to be the guy that's got the engine, he's going to break up the play. But they feel like he's not good enough as a passer.
Well, he had him at Sporting, didn't he? He knows him and he knows the system.
Why has he not been... So I agree on the recruitment side of it. I just think back on the forward players of all that money, where's Mason Mount going to play? Where's Bruno Fernandes going to play? Because Bruno's not a 6. No. In midfield, he could play as a number 8 or a number 10 in a 3-man midfield, but they don't do that. So by betting Mbeumo and Cunha, you got May. I just don't know where everyone's going to fit in. So you got a surplus of 10s. You got an untold amount of number 10s, Rob, and no midfield generals, as I call them. The Roy Keanes, your Brian Robsons, your Patrick Vieira's, the guys that can do a little bit of everything. They've got, one in Ugarte that they don't trust. Casemiro is, and I said on our show, Rob, he's one more thing. I have respect for him.
And it's hard to criticise
people like that.
But it's our job to do that. It's not. No, he's not athletic enough.
So
the only one I feel a bit sorry for, Rob, is Bruno. And I'll go back to this, and then I'll give you. And the reason why, and you did brilliant. The first, as Emil Smith-Rowe scores the goal, my first thought was, somebody's let him go. Somebody, I was a midfield player, used to run forward, and I used to, think there's some midfield players who'll run with you to the box, then they'll stop.
Correct.
And others will go all the way with you and try and get a block in.
Right.
Bruno Fernandes has no real desire, or I don't think sometimes recognises.
It's not in his DNA.
No, and you know what? He's right that it's not in his DNA, because Bruno can do things with the ball you couldn't even dream of. He sees passes, he can clip a ball, he can score goals, he can take free kicks. Bruno's job is at the other end of the pitch, where he can make that front three come alive.
Yes.
So, yes, he was at fault, but for me, he's not to blame. Because he shouldn't be the guy that's got his job. There should be a guy who's in there who hasn't got half the skill of Bruno, can do 3 keepy-ups and then drops the ball every week. But he's going to mark a runner and stop Emil Smith-Rowe getting that goal.
Right.
And I'm going to give you 2, Rob, who we saw last weekend, and they were bought for less than $50 million. Andre and Gomez at Wolverhampton Wanderers. They're 24 years of age. They're Brazilian. They're aggressive. They're athletic. They both technically can get on the ball and pass it into where it needs to get to. They don't run forward too many times. They don't want the headlines. And I'm saying, Rob, one of them at least. Go and find one of them. You don't have to spend 100-odd million if Balaba is not available, or, a Caicedo-esque isn't available. There's somebody there for $20, $30, $40 million who can make a difference.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need. I mean, they're not going to go there, but you just picked out Palhinha. No, he's not the right age profile for you. But talk about that's the sort of profile we're talking about. A player that's good on the ball, and he'll track her runners, and he'll get his foot in, he'll protect the back three, and let everybody else do their thing. And I agree with you, Rob, on the Bruno thing. And I agree. It's not in his makeup. I broke down the play, Rob, and he ain't even considering or thinking that this guy's going to run into. He's not. He's looking around. He's not even thinking about if it was me, because that's what I did. I couldn't make a pass like he can make a pass. Yeah. But I'm looking at my guy, and you might be my guy when I play against you at Wimbledon. Where's Earle? Yeah. There he is. I got him. Right, on goal side. He's gonna. Here he comes. I got him. And I'm gonna track you and try and stop you from getting a free effort a goal. He's not even thinking about it.
But you would also take a pride in that, Rob. That would be part of like you get on the bus and think, Well, it isn't part of what Bruno's thinking about the penalty and the ball he overhit and the clip ball that nobody saw the run, and he's thinking he's got a creative mind.
Yeah.
And so sticking him in that hole, these things are gonna happen because it's not really what he does.
Can I give you one more thing on that play, Rob? And again,
yeah.
We don't want to be jumping over Man United, right? But there's one last detail I want to say about it, right?
Yeah.
When the captain, Bruno Fernandes, doesn't track a runner and the guy strolls in and scores, I'm telling you that the majority of people that I play with, or the better players, the leaders, are gonna. Yeah. I looked at Luke Shaw, right? He should be like, "What are you doing?"
Bruno,
like, You know, there's got to be a bit more accountability, a little bit more. I remember I played again, like. It's not probably overused playing, but Paul Ince was an England midfield player.
Yeah,
he was on my case every minute of the game. And I used to laugh at him sometimes, like, what are you talking about? We'd argue, but he kept me on my toes. And any little mistake, he's on me. Partly because he wanted that for his own game, I think. But the accountability, and they're like, come on, I don't care if he's a captain. Someone's got to say, and I know maybe it's not in his DNA, but you should have tracked and runner there. I mean, that's just a separate little rant. And maybe football's moved on, but surely, Rob, at some point, people have got to be held others accountable. Sorry,
I just got one more place, and then we're done on this one. We'll move on. What say Kobbie Mainoo, my friend? What say Kobbie Mainoo? Right. I mean, like profile, athletic, young, seen thing, but doesn't fit the profile of what that person is. Can we mold? You know, Ryan Gravenberch, the season before Arne Slot went there, was an attacking 8 midfield player, and Arne Slot turned him into holding defence. Alexis McAllister became a little bit more at times as that player. Can Kobbie Mainoo become that player?
Love to see that. I honestly, again, I don't know where, and I might be wrong here, but I don't know whether it's in his DNA to be that guy, to be a holding guy. I'm going to get across there and make a sliding challenge. I'm going to get on my feet. I'm going to run back and make a tackle. I'm going to be in the penalty box.
We've seen a bit of all-action Kobbie, though, haven't we?
Yeah, but with the ball,
goals
with the ball,
and passing
technical,
and that.
Yeah, he's really good. If you could morph him and blimmin' Manuel Ugarte, you get a perfect guy for what we're talking about, a player that's got a defensive sense.
But he can learn that, Rob.
But has he got a big enough engine? Has he got stamina? Has he got effort? Has he got distance? Can he get up and down? I just worry that he's not athletic enough to cover the ground that you have to in a 2-man midfield. This is a 2-man midfield because with the system that they play. If it's a 3-man midfield, then forget the last stuff we talked about the last 10 minutes because it changes. There's 3 of you to do those jobs. Yeah. But as a 2, it's a specific guy, and Mainoo's not considered athletic enough, right, but technical enough, and Ugarte is considered not technical enough, but has the energy. They haven't got the guy, and they spent a ton of money on the front players. Maybe they should have redirected that on somebody for that middle position.
Okay, we'll see. Work to do for Ruben Amorim.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long, and for even more Premier League content from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.